In a small village nestled between rolling green hills and dense, ancient forests, the first rays of dawn gently peek through the narrow wooden shutters of a humble cottage. The air is crisp and cool, carrying with it the faint scent of earth and wood smoke. Inside the modest home, the soft rustle of linen sheets and the faint creak of floorboards mark the beginning of another day. The carpenter's wife, a woman of quiet strength and gentle spirit, stirs beneath a patchwork quilt, her breath slow and even. Her name is Elizabeth. The early morning light spills softly across her worn but carefully mended gown, a simple garment dyed in faded shades of blue and gray, the colors softened by countless washes and the passage of time. She opens her eyes slowly, savoring the stillness that the new day brings before the village awakens fully. Outside, the faint crow of a rooster signals the village's stirring life. Elizabeth breathes deeply, feeling the coolness of the wooden floor beneath her feet as she rises. The cottage smells faintly of pine wood and herbs, lavender and rosemary hanging above the hearth to dry, ready to ward off illness and bring calm to their small home. Her husband, Thomas, the village carpenter, is already awake in the workshop adjoining their home. The rhythmic tapping of his hammer on chisel is a comforting sound, steady and sure, like the heartbeat of their simple life. Elizabeth listens for a moment, the steady rhythm grounding her in the certainty of their day ahead. Though the world beyond their village is often turbulent, war whispers on distant winds, and cities grow restless, here, life moves to a gentler pace. Elizabeth knows well the quiet joys of their daily routine, fetching water from the well, tending to the small garden where herbs and vegetables grow in neat rows, and preparing simple meals from what the earth provides. As she moves to light the hearth fire, she reflects on the years spent beside Thomas, sharing this modest life carved out of wood and earth. Their home, though small, is warm with love and quiet purpose. Elizabeth's hands, calloused yet gentle, begin to prepare the morning meal, coarse bread baked the day before, a pot of thick porridge, and a handful of fresh berries gathered from the hedgerows. Through the small window, a soft breeze stirs the curtains, carrying the songs of birds hidden in the trees. Elizabeth hums softly as she works, a melody passed down from her mother, weaving a thread of comfort through the morning light. In this peaceful moment, Elizabeth is both a keeper of the hearth and a witness to a world that changes beyond the village boundaries. Her life, though simple, is woven with resilience and quiet hope, an enduring story told in the small acts of daily care. The workshop is a humble space nestled just beside the cottage, its walls made of rough-hewn timber and clay, with a small window that lets in the golden morning light. It smells warmly of fresh-cut wood, pine shavings, and a faint trace of linseed oil, the scents that speak of Thomas's craft. Here, the carpenter transforms simple logs into tools, furniture, and sometimes delicate wooden toys for the village children. Thomas is already at his workbench, his strong hand steady as he smooths the surface of a freshly carved chair leg. His brow is furrowed in concentration, yet his movements are slow and deliberate, as if the rhythm of the hammer and chisel is a meditation. Elizabeth watches him quietly from the doorway for a moment, admiring the careful patience he shows in every stroke. The workshop is filled with the soft sounds of creation, the scrape of a plane against wood, the dull thud of a mallet, the whisper of sawdust drifting through the air. Each piece Thomas makes carries a small part of his soul, a mark of his skill and love for the work. Elizabeth steps inside, carrying a small basket of fresh bread and honey from their larder. "Good morning," she says softly, setting the basket down on a nearby table. Thomas looks up, his face breaking into a tired but warm smile. "Morning, my love," he replies, wiping his hands on his worn leather apron. Their life is one of quiet partnership. Elizabeth's tasks may seem small, gathering food, tending the garden, caring for the home, but they are the foundation upon which Thomas's craft rests. Without her steady hands and careful attention, the rhythm of their days would falter. Today, Thomas is working on a special commission, a cradle for the mayor's newborn child. The wood is cherry, smooth and warm to the touch, and Elizabeth knows how much this project means to him. It is not just a job but a chance to show his skill and provide for their family. As the sun climbs higher, shafts of light filter through the dusty window, illuminating the fine grain of the wood and the intricate patterns Thomas carves along the edges. Elizabeth helps by holding small tools, sanding rough patches, and sometimes offering quiet encouragement. Their work flows together like a slow dance, each movement carefully attuned to the other. Outside, the village is coming to life. Children laugh as they run along the dirt paths, and neighbors call greetings to one another, their voices blending with the chirping of birds and the distant tolling of the church bell. Elizabeth's heart swells with a quiet joy, knowing that within this small community, they have found belonging and purpose. As midday approaches, Elizabeth takes a moment to step outside, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face and the gentle breeze that carries the scent of blooming wildflowers. She knows the world beyond their village holds many dangers and uncertainties. Stories of war, of harsh winters, and of disease that can spread quickly, but here, sheltered by the rhythm of daily life and the love they share, they find peace. Returning to the workshop, Elizabeth finds Thomas carefully assembling the final pieces of the cradle. His eyes shine with pride and a hint of exhaustion. "It will be ready soon," he says softly. Elizabeth smiles, knowing that the cradle will carry not just a child but the hopes and dreams of their community. In the quiet moments before the afternoon meal, they sit together, hands entwined, listening to the sounds of the village and the steady ticking of time. For Elizabeth, these simple rhythms are a balm, a reminder that even in a world of uncertainty, love and craft endure. Outside their cottage, just beyond the worn stone path, Elizabeth tends to a small garden, a patch of earth where herbs, vegetables, and wildflowers grow in careful rows. This garden is her sanctuary, a place where the rhythms of the earth meet the rhythms of her heart. In the early morning, before the sun climbs high and the village hums with activity, Elizabeth kneels among the green shoots, her hands gentle as they brush the soil around tender plants. The scent of fresh thyme and sage fills the air, mingling with the soft buzz of bees flitting between blossoms. Her garden is modest, but every leaf and stem carries meaning. Rosemary to protect against illness, lavender to calm the spirit, mint to soothe the stomach, all carefully chosen and lovingly nurtured. These herbs are more than plants, they are small treasures passed down from generations of women who tended the land before her. As she works, Elizabeth thinks about the changing seasons. Spring's promise of new life, summer's warmth and abundance, autumn's quiet fading, each season brings its own gifts and challenges. The garden reminds her of the cycles that shape not only the earth but their lives. Today, Elizabeth harvests a handful of ripe tomatoes and fresh basil leaves, planning a simple meal for the evening. The vibrant reds and deep greens will brighten their table, a small celebration of life's sweetness amid the quiet struggles they face. Her mind drifts to the neighbors, old Marta, who shares stories of her youth, young Anselm, the blacksmith's son, always curious about the plants Elizabeth grows. The garden connects her to them all, weaving invisible threads of community and care. The sun rises higher now, casting warm light over the flowers and leaves. Elizabeth pauses to drink in the beauty of the moment, the way a single blossom holds the promise of life, the soft rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. For Elizabeth, the garden is more than sustenance. It is a symbol of hope, a quiet reminder that even in uncertain times, life endures and flourishes. She smiles softly, fingers brushing the soil as if to thank the earth itself. With the basket full and heart light, Elizabeth rises, ready to return to the cottage where the smell of fresh bread and the sound of Thomas's steady hammer await. Together, they nurture not only their home but the fragile bloom of a shared future. The day dawns clear and bright as Elizabeth and Thomas make their way along the winding dirt road toward the village market. The air hums with anticipation and the faint scent of fresh bread, herbs, and wood smoke mingling like a comforting blanket over the bustling square. Market day is one of the few times when villagers from all around gather, their voices blending into a lively chorus of greetings, barter, and laughter. It is a place where the simple rhythms of daily life unfold, a gathering of souls who depend on each other for sustenance, trade, and companionship. Elizabeth carries a small basket, woven tightly from willow branches, filled with fresh eggs, herbs, and a few wooden trinkets Thomas has crafted. They move slowly among the stalls, Thomas's sturdy hands resting gently on her shoulder, their presence a quiet testament to years spent side by side. The market bursts with colors and textures. Bolts of wool dyed in deep blues and rich reds, baskets brimming with apples and pears, piles of fragrant cheese and fresh bread still warm from the oven. Children dart between stalls, their laughter like chimes in the spring breeze. Elizabeth pauses to greet Marta, the village healer, whose knowledge of herbs and remedies is revered. They exchange quiet words about the health of the community and the changing season's blessings. Marta's weathered hands brush over a sprig of rosemary, and Elizabeth feels the deep bond that women like them share, a lineage of care and wisdom. Thomas, meanwhile, chats with other craftsmen, sharing news and stories. His eyes brighten when a fellow carpenter shows him a new joint technique learned from the town to the south. These moments of connection feed not only their livelihood but their spirits. Elizabeth finds herself drawn to a stall where colorful pottery is displayed, delicate cups and plates adorned with hand-painted flowers. She touches a small cup gently, imagining the warmth of tea held within, the quiet moments it might bring on chilly evenings. The market is also a place of stories. An old man recounts tales of distant wars, while young mothers share hopes for their children's futures. Elizabeth listens, absorbing the fabric of her world, the threads of joy and hardship woven tightly together. As the sun climbs high, the market begins to wind down. Elizabeth and Thomas gather their purchases, a small jar of honey, a length of linen cloth, and a few fresh vegetables for the evening meal. Their basket is heavier now, but their hearts are light with the simple pleasure of shared community. Walking home, Elizabeth feels the soft weight of Thomas's arm around her waist, steady and reassuring. The village fades behind them, replaced by the familiar sights and sounds of their small world, the song of birds, the rustle of leaves, the comforting scent of home. At the doorstep, Elizabeth pauses, breathing in the calm before stepping inside. Market day is a reminder that even amid uncertainty, life moves. As the sun dips low behind the hills, casting a warm amber glow across the village, Elizabeth and Thomas return to their cottage, their steps slower now with the comfort of the day's end. The sky is painted in soft hues of pink and lavender, a gentle promise of rest and renewal. Inside, the hearth waits, a heart of glowing embers nestled beneath the blackened iron kettle. Elizabeth moves quietly, her hands skilled and steady, arranging small logs to coax the fire's warmth back to life. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the rough wooden walls, wrapping the room in a soothing embrace. Thomas settles into his favorite wooden chair, worn smooth by years of use, while Elizabeth begins to prepare their evening meal. The air fills with the scent of simmering broth and fresh herbs, simple ingredients transformed by care and patience into nourishment for body and soul. As the day's labors fade behind them, the quiet moments together become sacred. A time for sharing stories, hopes, and the gentle companionship that has grown between them. Elizabeth recounts the small wonders of her day, the soft growth of basil in the garden, the laughter of children at the market, while Thomas listens, his eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. Outside, the village settles into calm. The faint murmur of distant voices drifts through the open window, mingling with the rhythmic chirping of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. The world slows, wrapped in the hush of twilight. Elizabeth retrieves a worn wooden box from a shelf, a keepsake passed down through her family. Inside lie delicate scraps of cloth, dried flowers, and a few carved trinkets. She runs her fingers over these treasures, feeling the presence of those who came before her, their stories woven into the fabric of her life. Thomas picks up a small wooden whistle, handcrafted with care, and plays a soft, haunting melody. The music drifts through the room, a lullaby for the evening, a bridge between past and present. Together, they sit by the fire's glow, wrapped in a shared silence that speaks louder than words. Elizabeth feels the steady beat of Thomas's heart against her hand, a reminder that even in uncertain times, love remains constant, a refuge from the changing world beyond. As the night deepens, Elizabeth prepares a small cup of chamomile tea, its warmth soothing and sweet. She hands it to Thomas, who smiles gratefully, the simple act a quiet ritual that grounds them both. The fire burns low now, its embers glowing like tiny stars against the dark. Elizabeth and Thomas exchange a soft glance, a promise that tomorrow, like today, they will face together, with patience, with hope, and with the gentle strength of two souls intertwined. In this small cottage, nestled in the heart of a world often harsh and unpredictable, the evening by the hearth is a sanctuary. A space where time slows, where worries fade, and where love, in its quietest form, endures. Winter had settled deeply over the village now, wrapping the landscape in a thick blanket of snow and silence. The trees stood bare and skeletal against a pale gray sky, their branches etched like delicate lace. Outside, the cold bit sharply at any exposed skin, and the frozen ground crunched beneath every cautious step. Inside the cottage, Elizabeth moved quietly, tending the hearth with care. The fire sputtered and crackled, sending warm light dancing across the walls, a beacon of life amid the winter's chill. The heavy quilts she and Thomas had sewn together were pulled close, their thick fabric woven from wool gathered during warmer months. The days grew short and shadows long, and the village seemed to retreat into itself as the cold deepened. Food was scarce, the garden slept beneath snow, and the root cellar held only the last of the harvest's gifts. Elizabeth carefully rationed what little remained, preparing simple stews that simmered slowly, their rich aroma filling the small cottage. Outside, the wind howled mournfully, rattling the shutters and stirring the ashes in the hearth. Elizabeth could hear the faint footsteps of villagers hurrying along narrow paths, heads bowed against the storm. Though the village felt quieter, the bonds between neighbors grew stronger, each reliant on the others for warmth, supplies, and companionship. Thomas had taken to working by the firelight, carving small wooden pieces, buttons, toys, and simple utensils, to trade or sell when the roads thawed. His hands moved skillfully despite the chill, the rhythm of his work a steady comfort against the harshness of the season. Elizabeth often sat beside him, mending clothes by candlelight, her fingers nimble as they patched worn fabric and stitched hems. She hummed softly, a melody to keep the cold at bay and to remind them both of spring's eventual return. Sometimes, the wind would carry distant news, whispers of harsh winters elsewhere, of crops failing and roads blocked by snow. These stories, shared in hushed tones at the market before the cold gripped the land, reminded Elizabeth of the fragility of life and the strength required to endure. Yet, amid the hardship, moments of quiet joy shimmered like stars. The warmth of a shared meal, the comfort of Thomas's hand in hers, the glow of the fire casting long shadows and soft smiles. These simple things were their fortress against despair. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, Elizabeth and Thomas sat close by the hearth. She offered him a small carved bird, a gift of hope and light amid the dark. He accepted it with a grateful smile, a silent promise that they would weather this winter together. The long night stretched on, but Elizabeth held fast to the knowledge that beneath the snow, life waited patiently, roots deep in the earth, ready to bloom once more. Her heart, like the garden she tended, was resilient, nurtured by love and quiet faith. With the first whispers of spring stirring beneath the frost, the village began to awaken from its long winter sleep. The air grew warmer, carrying hints of fresh earth and budding leaves, and the days stretched slowly toward the promise of renewal. Among the villagers, anticipation hummed quietly. Soon, the annual festival would arrive, a time to celebrate the changing season, to honor old traditions, and to gather in joy and community. For Elizabeth and Thomas, this event was a bright thread woven into the fabric of their year, a chance to step beyond the routine of daily life and share laughter, music, and stories beneath the open sky. In the days leading up to the festival, Elizabeth moved with purpose through her chores, her heart lighter with each passing morning. She gathered wildflowers from the edge of the forest, their colors a welcome burst against the lingering browns and grays of early spring. With nimble fingers, she wove garlands and wreaths, delicate crowns to adorn the heads of children and neighbors alike. Thomas busied himself in the workshop, crafting wooden toys and trinkets, horses on wheels, simple puzzles, and carved animals, that would be given as gifts or sold at the market stalls set up for the celebration. His hands worked swiftly, the familiar rhythm a joyful prelude to the festival's bustle. When the day arrived, the village square transformed into a lively tapestry of sights and sounds. Stalls lined with woven baskets, colorful cloths, and fragrant foods invited villagers to browse and barter. The air was filled with the sweet scent of baked apples, honeyed pastries, and roasted chestnuts, mingling with the earthy aroma of fresh herbs and blooming flowers. Children darted between the crowds, their laughter ringing like bells as they chased one another beneath fluttering ribbons and bright banners. Musicians played flutes and tambourines, their melodies weaving through the air, coaxing even the most reserved villagers to tap their feet or hum along. Elizabeth wore a simple dress dyed a soft green, embroidered with tiny blossoms she had sewn herself. A wreath of wildflowers crowned her hair, the colors vibrant against the gentle sweep of her brown locks. Thomas, in his best linen shirt and sturdy breeches, carried a small basket filled with his handcrafted wares, his eyes bright with quiet pride. Together, they wandered through the festival, greeting friends and neighbors, sharing stories, and savoring the fleeting magic of the day. Elizabeth felt the warmth of belonging wrap around her like a soft shawl, a reminder that even amid the hardships of their world, community and celebration could bloom. As afternoon light softened toward evening, the villagers gathered around a large fire pit in the center of the square. Elders recited old tales. Stories of heroes and hardships, of love and loss, passed down through generations. Elizabeth listened, mesmerized by the flickering flames and the weight of history carried. The days after the festival settled into a peaceful rhythm, but a quiet anticipation lingered in the air. One morning, as Elizabeth tended the garden, a messenger arrived at their doorstep, a young boy, breathless and dirt-smudged, carrying a folded piece of parchment sealed with wax. Elizabeth took the letter with gentle hands, breaking the seal with a soft sigh. The handwriting was familiar, looping and precise, Thomas's brother, who had left the village months ago to seek work in the distant city. She unfolded the letter carefully, her eyes tracing the words that spoke of bustling streets, towering buildings, and the hardships of city life. Thomas's brother wrote of challenges and loneliness, but also of hope, that someday he might return with stories and gifts for the family. Elizabeth sat quietly by the window, the letter resting in her lap as the soft light shifted through the glass. Her thoughts wandered to the brother she had known as a boy. The laughter they had shared, the plans made beside the fire, the silent prayers for safety on his journey. Thomas entered the room then, wiping sawdust from his hands, and Elizabeth held out the letter. His eyes grew distant as he read, the lines of worry etched more deeply on his face. "It is hard, so far away," he murmured. "But he is brave, and we must trust in his strength." Together, they spoke softly of family and the ties that bound them across miles and hardship. Elizabeth felt the familiar ache of absence but also the warmth of connection, woven through words written with love. In the days that followed, Elizabeth found comfort in small acts, preparing an extra loaf of bread, sewing a patch on Thomas's coat, tending the fire with renewed care. Each gesture was a thread linking their lives to those who journeyed beyond the village's borders. The letter became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even when separated by distance and uncertainty, the bonds of family endure. Elizabeth held it close, reading the lines again and again, imagining the bustling city streets and the brother who faced them with quiet courage. As evening fell and the hearth's glow softened the room, Elizabeth and Thomas sat together, sharing dreams of reunion and stories yet to be told. The world beyond their village seemed vast and unknown, but within their home, love and hope were steady lights guiding them through the shadows. After weeks of dry, crisp days, the sky finally gathered heavy, gray clouds that rolled gently over the hills. Elizabeth watched from the window as the world darkened, a cool breeze stirring the budding leaves and bending the slender branches of the tall oaks that bordered the village. The first drops fell softly at first, a delicate patter on the wooden roof and the earth below. Elizabeth felt the change in the air, the sweet, fresh scent of rain mixing with the dampness of the soil and the faint perfume of blooming flowers. It was a blessing, a quiet promise that the garden would awaken fully once again. She pulled on her worn cloak and stepped outside, letting the rain fall lightly on her face. The droplets traced paths down her sleeves as she knelt beside the soil, feeling the life-giving water seep deep into the earth. The garden, bare just weeks before, began to pulse with new energy. Elizabeth's hands worked steadily, loosening the earth around the roots of small herbs and seedlings, whispering silent thanks for the rain's gentle touch. She remembered the stories her mother had told her, how the rain was nature's way of healing, washing away the old to make room for the new. The villagers, too, welcomed the rain's arrival with quiet gratitude. Children splashed in puddles, their laughter ringing through the damp streets, while neighbors pulled cloaks tight and exchanged knowing smiles. The rain was a gift after the long winter's harsh grip. Back inside the cottage, the hearth crackled with warmth, a small refuge from the chill. Elizabeth brewed a pot of herbal tea, the steam curling upward in soft spirals, mingling with the rhythmic tapping of Thomas's hammer in the adjoining workshop. Even through the rain's steady rhythm, their home pulsed with life and the steady beat of daily work. As the evening deepened, the rain slowed to a gentle drizzle, and Elizabeth settled by the window, a soft shawl wrapped around her shoulders. She traced the droplets running down the glass, her thoughts drifting to the future, the seasons yet to come, the cycles of growth and renewal that shaped their lives. The first spring rain was more than a simple weather event. It was a quiet symbol of hope and perseverance, a reminder that even after the coldest, darkest times, life finds a way to flourish. Elizabeth smiled softly, her heart warmed by this gentle truth. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring new growth, new joys, and the continuation of their shared story beneath the ever-changing sky. In the soft morning light, the workshop held a quiet reverence. Rows of tools lay neatly arranged on the rough wooden bench, planes, chisels, saws, and hammers, each worn from years of careful use. To Thomas, these tools were more than simple instruments, they were extensions of his hands and heart, each one carrying the stories of projects past and hopes yet to be shaped. Elizabeth entered the workshop carrying a small cloth to clean the surfaces, her touch gentle as she dusted the handles and blades. She admired the care Thomas gave to his tools, knowing that their sharpness and strength depended on this quiet maintenance. The tools spoke of a craft that required patience and precision, a slow dance between wood and will. Thomas took pride in his work, not only in the pieces he created but in the ritual of caring for the very tools that made his craft possible. Today, Thomas prepared to begin a new project, a sturdy chest to hold the village's grain during the harvest season. The wood was oak, heavy and durable, promising protection and longevity. Elizabeth watched as he selected his plane, the blade gleaming in the morning sun, and began to smooth the rough timber with practiced strokes. The rhythm of the workshop filled the space, the rasp of saw teeth, the tap of hammer against chisel, the soft scratch of pencil marking measurements. Each sound was a note in a quiet symphony of creation. Elizabeth sometimes helped by passing tools or holding pieces steady, her presence a steady support in the flow of work. Though she did not wield the hammer or chisel, her knowledge of Thomas's craft deepened with every day spent by his side. As the chest took shape, Thomas explained the care needed in each step, the importance of grain direction, the fitting of joints, the final sanding to reveal the wood's natural beauty. Elizabeth listened intently, marveling at the patience and skill woven into every inch of the work. Their partnership, much like the tools themselves, was built on trust and shared purpose. Elizabeth's steady hands and gentle spirit complemented Thomas's strength and precision, creating a harmony that sustained their life together. As afternoon light softened, Thomas set aside his tools and wiped his brow, a faint smile of satisfaction on his face. The chest, though unfinished, stood proud, a testament to his skill and the quiet love that shaped it. Elizabeth reached out, tracing the smooth surface with a tender touch. "It will serve the village well," she said softly. Thomas nodded, his eyes reflecting gratitude and hope. In the simple tools of the carpenter, Elizabeth saw a larger truth, that with care, patience, and heart, even the most ordinary things could hold extraordinary meaning. The village was alive with the sound of children's laughter, a bright, ringing melody that carried through the streets and into Elizabeth's heart. On any given afternoon, their playful voices wove a lively tapestry around the cottages and workshops, a reminder of life's joyful persistence amid the everyday toil. Elizabeth watched from the doorway as a small group of children chased one another near the village well, their feet stirring up dust and petals from early blossoms. Their faces glowed with the simple delight of a game, their eyes sparkling with innocence and hope. Among them was little Anna, the blacksmith's youngest daughter, whose boundless energy was matched only by her curiosity. She clutched a wooden horse carved by Thomas, the grain worn smooth from her small hands. Elizabeth smiled as Anna's laughter rang out, the sound weaving a thread of light through the afternoon. Children in the village were both a blessing and a reminder of the future's fragile promise. In these times, where illness and hardship often shadowed lives, their laughter was a balm, an affirmation that despite uncertainty, life would continue. Elizabeth sometimes joined the children, sharing stories or teaching them simple songs passed down from her own mother. Her voice was soft and steady, a comforting presence amid the noisy joy. The children gathered close, their wide eyes eager to catch every word. Thomas, too, found joy in the children's world. He crafted toys with patient hands, wooden swords, spinning tops, and puzzle boxes, that sparked imagination and wonder. Each gift was a small act of kindness, a way to bring light to their days. The village elders often watched the children with gentle smiles, remembering their own youth and the cycles of growth and change. In the children's laughter, they heard the echoes of past generations and the hopes for those to come. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky with soft golds and pinks, Elizabeth gathered the children near the hearth. She told a quiet story of a brave young girl who journeyed through forests and mountains, a tale filled with lessons of courage and kindness. The children listened intently, their faces glowing in the firelight, eyes wide with wonder. When the story ended, they thanked Elizabeth with shy smiles and warm embraces, their joy a gift that filled the small cottage with light. In the stillness that followed, Elizabeth reflected on the importance of these moments, the laughter, the stories, the shared dreams. They were threads that wove the village's fabric strong and enduring, binding past and future in a gentle embrace. For Elizabeth and Thomas, the children's laughter was more than sound. It was a promise, a song of life's resilience and the enduring power of love to carry them through whatever days lay ahead. As the sun slipped behind the distant hills, painting the sky in gentle hues of rose and gold, Elizabeth and Thomas wrapped themselves in warm cloaks and stepped outside into the cooling evening air. The village had quieted, smoke curled lazily from chimneys, and the soft murmur of conversations drifted through open windows. The path leading from their cottage wound through fields still dotted with the last wildflowers of summer, now tinged with the soft browns and deep greens of early autumn. The scent of damp earth and ripening fruit filled the air, a rich reminder of the season's bounty. Walking side by side, their steps slow and unhurried, Elizabeth felt the comforting presence of Thomas close beside her. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining in a gentle, familiar grasp. The world around them seemed to pause, a quiet moment stolen from the passage of time. They passed the village well, where a few neighbors lingered, exchanging news and kind greetings beneath the fading light. The sound of a lute drifted softly from a nearby window, the melody weaving a delicate thread through the evening's calm. Elizabeth breathed deeply, the cool air filling her lungs and clearing her thoughts. The worries and labors of the day melted away, replaced by the simple joy of shared silence and gentle companionship. As they walked along the edge of the forest, the first stars began to shimmer faintly overhead, their light soft against the deepening twilight. The rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl whispered the quiet songs of the night. Thomas stopped briefly to point out a small cluster of mushrooms, their caps glistening with dew, and Elizabeth knelt to examine them, marveling at the delicate balance of nature's hidden wonders. In moments like these, the vastness of the world felt intimate and alive. Continuing their stroll, they reached a small clearing where wild grasses swayed in the evening breeze. Elizabeth laid down her cloak and sat, inviting Thomas to join her. Together, they watched as the sky deepened to a rich indigo, stars multiplying like tiny lanterns scattered across a velvet tapestry. Their conversation was soft and slow, sharing hopes for the coming harvest and dreams of a peaceful future. Elizabeth spoke of her wish to teach the village children about the herbs and flowers that had long been her passion, while Thomas imagined new designs for furniture that might bring comfort to their neighbors. The evening wrapped around them like a gentle shawl, a quiet sanctuary from the world's noise and haste. In the stillness, Elizabeth felt a deep gratitude, for the love they shared, for the beauty of the simple moments, and for the enduring strength found in togetherness. As they rose to return home, the village's lights twinkled below, a constellation of human warmth and connection. Elizabeth smiled softly, her heart full, knowing that whatever the days ahead might bring, they would face them side by side, walking through life. The days had grown short and cold once more, with the first frost frosting the edges of the village rooftops like delicate sugar crystals. Snow began to drift gently from a gray sky, coating the fields and trees in a quiet, white hush. Outside, the world was still, wrapped in winter's deep embrace. Inside their cottage, however, the hearth blazed brightly, a glowing heart that filled the room with warmth and light. Elizabeth sat close to the fire, her fingers busy with knitting warm woolen mittens, small gifts for the village children, a humble offering against the biting cold. The rhythmic click of her needles blended with the soft crackle of burning wood, a soothing melody that comforted both body and soul. Thomas was nearby, tending to the workshop stove, carefully sharpening his tools by the flickering light. The winter hearth was more than just a source of warmth, it was a gathering place, a sanctuary from the harshness of the season. Friends and neighbors would often stop by in the evenings, drawn by the promise of warmth, shared stories, and the simple joy of companionship. Elizabeth looked out the window to see smoke curling from the chimneys of other cottages, each one a beacon of life and resilience against the cold. The village, though small and humble, was woven tightly together by the shared experience of winter's challenge. Tonight, the air was filled with the scent of simmering stew and fragrant herbs, mingling with the wood smoke and the faint perfume of dried flowers hung to dry near the ceiling. Elizabeth's heart swelled with quiet gratitude for these simple blessings. As the firelight danced on the wooden beams overhead, Elizabeth and Thomas settled into a comfortable silence, the kind born of years spent side by side. They spoke little, for words were unnecessary in the presence of such steady love. Outside, the wind whispered against the shutters, carrying the distant howl of wolves and the soft murmur of falling snow. Yet inside, the hearth's glow wrapped them in a cocoon of safety and peace. Elizabeth traced the patterns of the flames with her eyes, feeling the warmth seep into her bones. She thought of the village, its people, its struggles, and its joys, and knew that this hearth was the heart not just of their home, but of their shared life. As the night deepened, Elizabeth laid aside her knitting and joined Thomas by the fire. Their hands found each other in the flickering light, a silent promise to face whatever winter might bring, together. In the quiet glow of the hearth, surrounded by love and the enduring spirit of their village, Elizabeth felt a profound peace, a reminder that even in the coldest times, warmth and light could be found. As twilight settled over the village, the market square transformed into a place of quiet enchantment. The stalls, which had bustled with activity during the day, now held only flickering lanterns and the faint scent of herbs and spices lingering in the cool air. The last vendors were packing their wares, voices lowered to soft murmurs as the village prepared to rest. Elizabeth and Thomas wandered slowly through the fading market, their footsteps muted on the worn cobblestones. The evening breeze carried the gentle notes of a lute, played by a traveling musician seated beneath a wooden archway adorned with ivy. His fingers danced across the strings, weaving a melody both haunting and comforting, a song that seemed to hold the stories of many seasons. The couple paused to listen, letting the music wash over them like a soothing balm after the day's labor. Elizabeth's eyes softened as she watched the flickering flames of nearby lanterns, their warm glow casting long shadows that danced against the walls of the surrounding buildings. Nearby, a group of villagers gathered quietly around a small fire, sharing tales of the harvest and memories of festivals past. Their laughter rose gently, mingling with the music, creating a tapestry of sound that spoke of community and shared history. Elizabeth reached out to Thomas's hand, fingers entwining with his as the melody shifted to a slower, more reflective tune. In this moment, the world beyond their village felt distant and softened, as if time itself had slowed to honor the quiet beauty of the evening. They moved on, passing stalls now empty save for a stray basket or a forgotten scarf. The scent of fresh bread and spiced cider lingered faintly, reminders of the day's warmth now settling into the cool night air. As they neared their cottage, Elizabeth glanced back at the market square, the lanterns flickering like stars fallen to earth. She felt a deep gratitude for this simple life, a life filled with the rhythms of work and rest, song and silence, love and resilience. Inside their home, the hearth awaited, its embers glowing softly, ready to welcome them back. The evening psalm lingered in Elizabeth's heart, a gentle melody that would carry her through the quiet hours until dawn. The village was cloaked in silence, a blanket of fresh snow softening the edges of roofs, trees, and winding paths. The world outside the cottage felt hushed, as if the snow had wrapped everything in a gentle, peaceful embrace. Elizabeth stood at the window, watching as delicate flakes drifted slowly from the sky, their descent a quiet dance against the fading light. The fire crackled warmly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows that played across the wooden walls and the worn tapestries hung with care. The soft glow made the room feel like a sanctuary, a refuge from the cold and stillness beyond. Elizabeth pulled her shawl tightly around her shoulders, feeling the comforting weight of its woolen threads. She thought of the villagers, many of whom were snug in their own homes, tending fires and preparing simple meals, sharing stories by candlelight. The snowfall was a reminder of nature's quiet rhythms, a time to rest and gather strength for the coming days. Outside, the trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches heavy with white, while the frozen earth beneath promised renewal beneath the winter's grip. Thomas joined Elizabeth by the window, his breath warm against her cheek. Together, they watched the snow fall, a soft, endless cascade that seemed to slow time itself. In the stillness, Elizabeth found peace, a deep, abiding calm that settled into her bones. The world was quiet, but not empty. Beneath the snow, life slept, waiting patiently for the sun's return. She thought of the garden they had tended through the seasons, now hidden beneath the snow's gentle cover, and smiled softly. Like their lives, it rested now, gathering strength for the new growth to come. As evening deepened, Elizabeth prepared a pot of tea infused with dried herbs, mint and chamomile, its warm steam filling the room with soothing scents. She and Thomas settled near the hearth, their hands intertwined, hearts steady in the shared silence. The quiet snowfall was a gift, a moment of stillness in a world that often rushed and roared. It was a time to breathe, to reflect, and to cherish the simple blessings of home and love. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, blanketing the village in a serene white, while inside, Elizabeth and Thomas found warmth in each other's presence, wrapped in the gentle embrace of winter's quiet song. In a quiet corner of their cottage, a sturdy wooden loom stood bathed in the gentle light filtering through the window. The loom's frame was worn smooth from years of use, its threads stretched taut like the delicate fabric of their daily lives. Elizabeth sat before it, her hands steady as she guided the shuttle through the weaving, each pass creating a soft rhythm, a song of patience and care. Weaving was a craft passed down through generations of women, a quiet art that transformed simple threads into cloth that would clothe and comfort. Elizabeth found in it a meditative peace, the slow repetition of motion grounding her amid the bustle of life. Today, she was weaving a piece of linen for a new set of curtains, hoping to brighten their home with light and color. The flax fibers shimmered softly in the sunlight, their pale hue promising warmth and softness when finally woven together. As her fingers moved, Elizabeth thought of the seasons, how each thread in the fabric represented the weaving of time, the passing of days, the cycles of growth and rest. The loom, like their lives, held both strength and flexibility, enduring tension while creating something beautiful. Thomas paused in the workshop to watch her for a moment, admiring the focus and grace with which she worked. He often marveled at how their crafts, woodworking and weaving, were different yet alike, both requiring patience, skill, and a deep connection to the materials. Elizabeth smiled softly at him, then returned to her weaving, the soft clicking of the loom filling the room like a lullaby. Outside, the village stirred with the distant sounds of children playing and merchants preparing for the coming market. The threads beneath her hands grew longer, a tapestry of woven dreams and quiet hopes. She thought of the future. Of warm clothes for cold winters, of gifts to share with neighbors, and of the enduring comfort found in simple, honest work. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, Elizabeth wound the finished cloth from the loom, its smooth surface glowing with the light of her care. She folded it gently, ready to bring new warmth and color to their home. In the quiet of the weaving room, surrounded by the soft song of the loom, Elizabeth felt a deep connection to the past and a hopeful embrace of the days yet to come. The village had fallen into a deep, peaceful quiet as night blanketed the sky with its velvet darkness. Only the soft hoot of an owl and the distant barking of a dog punctuated the stillness. The stars twinkled faintly overhead, their cold light casting pale shadows on the snow-covered roofs. Elizabeth and Thomas had long since retired for the evening, but tonight, Thomas was to keep the night watch, a duty shared among the village men during the cold months, a silent guardian against wandering wolves, thieves, or other dangers that lurked in the darkness. Bundled in thick cloaks and sturdy boots, Thomas stepped outside into the crisp night air. Elizabeth watched him go with a mixture of pride and worry, knowing the risks but trusting in his steady strength. The soft crunch of his footsteps soon faded as he made his rounds, the village wrapped in stillness. Elizabeth returned to the warmth of the hearth, her fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of herbal tea. She sat quietly by the fire, thoughts drifting between gratitude for Thomas's protection and the gentle hopes she carried for their future. The night watch was a solemn, patient vigil, a reminder of the balance between light and darkness. Thomas's footsteps echoed softly on the snow-dusted path as he moved slowly from house to house, his keen eyes scanning for signs of trouble beneath the moon's pale glow. In the silence, he listened to the whispers of the night, the rustle of wind through bare branches, the distant cry of a fox, the soft murmur of the river flowing beyond the trees. Each sound told a story, and Thomas was a silent witness, alert and steady. Back inside, Elizabeth's thoughts were with him, the warmth of their shared bond a shield against the cold. She hummed a gentle tune, one her mother had sung to her in childhood, a song of protection and peace. Hours passed like this, the world hushed except for the steady rhythms of night. As Thomas completed his watch, the first hint of dawn tinged the horizon with pale pink, softening the darkness and welcoming a new day. He returned to the cottage, tired but untroubled, the village safe beneath his watchful gaze. Elizabeth greeted him with a quiet smile and a warm embrace, the steady comfort of their shared life filling the room. The night watch was over, but its quiet strength lingered, an invisible thread weaving protection through their days and nights. In the delicate balance between shadow and light, Elizabeth and Thomas found peace, courage, and the enduring promise of dawn. Beyond the edge of the village, past the well-trodden paths and the familiar fields, lay a secret space, a hidden garden tucked away beneath the shelter of ancient trees. Elizabeth had discovered it one spring, when the wildflowers bloomed in riotous color and the air was thick with the hum of bees. The garden was a refuge, a quiet sanctuary where nature thrived untamed and the worries of the world slipped away. Here, the earth felt soft and alive beneath her fingers, the soil rich with the promise of growth and renewal. Today, Elizabeth stepped lightly among the blooms, bluebells nodding gently, primroses bursting with pale yellow, and delicate ferns unfurling their fronds. The air was sweet with the scent of jasmine and wet moss, a fragrance that seemed to wrap around her like a soft shawl. She knelt by a patch of herbs, thyme, sage, and rosemary, gently harvesting sprigs to dry for winter's use. Each plant held a story, a lesson passed down through generations of women who understood the language of leaves and roots. Elizabeth thought of the village, of the seasons that marked their lives and the cycles of planting and harvest. The garden was a reminder that even in hard times, life continued to bloom in quiet resilience. Nearby, a small stone bench offered a place to rest, its surface worn smooth by years of rain and sun. Elizabeth settled there, letting the peace of the garden wash over her. The gentle buzz of insects and the distant song of birds created a soft symphony, a lullaby for the soul. She pulled from her basket a small notebook, pages filled with sketches and notes, a journal of the garden's gifts, recipes for remedies, and dreams of new blooms to plant. Each entry was a thread weaving her life with the earth's enduring rhythms. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the garden floor, Elizabeth felt a deep gratitude for this hidden haven. It was a place of healing and hope, a sanctuary where time slowed and the heart found rest. Returning to the village as dusk settled, Elizabeth carried the garden's quiet strength within her, a gentle reminder that beneath the surface of their daily lives, beauty and resilience flourished, waiting patiently to be noticed. The morning light filtered softly through the cottage window, casting gentle patterns on the wooden floor. Elizabeth sat quietly at the table, her hands folded in her lap, heart heavy with a quiet sorrow. Today, a visitor would be leaving the village, Thomas's brother, who had journeyed far and now prepared to travel even further. The news had come gently, carried by a letter and then by whispered conversations among neighbors. His path would take him beyond the hills and forests they knew, into lands unknown and uncertain. Elizabeth understood the courage it took to step into the unknown, but the ache of parting settled deep in her chest. Thomas moved with quiet grace, preparing a small bundle of gifts, a carved wooden box, a piece of woven cloth, and a loaf of fresh bread, tokens of love and remembrance for his brother's journey. His eyes were steady but carried the weight of unspoken fears. As the sun climbed higher, neighbors gathered near the village gate, offering kind words, warm embraces, and hopeful wishes. Elizabeth watched as Thomas's brother stood tall, his face a mixture of determination and sadness. Elizabeth stepped forward, her voice soft but steady, offering a small prayer for safety and swift return. The air was thick with emotion, yet threaded with hope, the hope that bonds stretched across distance could never truly be broken. The farewell was quiet, marked by gentle touches and lingering glances. Elizabeth felt tears rise but held them back, drawing strength from the knowledge that love endured even when separated by miles and months. As the traveler disappeared down the winding path, Elizabeth and Thomas returned home hand in hand, their hearts heavy but united. The village settled once more into its gentle rhythms, carrying the memory of the farewell like a whispered promise. In the stillness that followed, Elizabeth found solace in the everyday. The tending of the garden, the warmth of the hearth, the steady beat of life continuing onward. She knew that though the world was vast and uncertain, the ties of family and love were steadfast anchors. The quiet farewell was not an end, but a beginning, a chapter in their shared story woven with hope, courage, and the enduring light of home. The first light of dawn crept gently over the horizon, bathing the village in a soft, golden glow. The world stirred slowly, awakening from the hush of night as birds sang their morning songs and the cool air shimmered with the promise of a new day. Elizabeth stood at the window, watching as the sky blushed with pale pinks and warm ambers. The night's shadows faded, replaced by the gentle warmth of dawn's embrace, a tender reminder that each day holds the chance for renewal and hope. Her hands rested lightly on the windowsill, fingers tracing the delicate frost patterns still lingering on the glass. The garden outside was still cloaked in the quiet of early morning, petals folded tight against the lingering chill, but beneath the surface, life pulsed patiently. Thomas joined her, his breath a soft cloud in the cool air. Together, they stepped outside, wrapped in shawls and cloaks, and breathed deeply of the fresh morning. The village lay peaceful, bathed in light and the soft hum of awakening life. Their journey together had been woven with seasons of joy and hardship, moments of quiet strength and gentle love. Elizabeth felt a profound gratitude for the life they shared, the steady rhythm of days marked by work and rest, laughter and silence, hope and resilience. As the sun climbed higher, painting the sky in hues of gold, Elizabeth and Thomas walked hand in hand toward the garden, ready to greet the new day. The earth was soft beneath their feet, the promise of growth and renewal alive in every bud and blade of grass. In the dawn's embrace, Elizabeth found peace, a gentle certainty that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, hearts united and spirits strong. The story of their lives, like the rising sun, was a quiet light in the world, steady, warm, and enduring. And as the village awoke, so too did the promise of tomorrow, bright with possibility and the gentle power of love.